French President Emmanuel Macron is embarking on a historic 5-day trip of the Pacific. He lands in New Caledonia's capital before making his way over to Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu. French officials say it's the first time a French president will visit independent countries in the Pacific. Alicia Foon spoke to Islands business correspondent Nick McClellan, who's in Noumea ahead of Macron's arrival.
It's unprecedented that a French president will be travelling to Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea. President Macron was in New Caledonia in 2018, and he's coming back for a 2-day visit to discuss a range of issues, particularly New Caledonia's institutional future and the place of France in the Indo-Pacific region. He'll be giving a major speech on Wednesday in the Place de Cocotier, the main square in Noumea, and people are waiting to see what he's got to say about the vexed question of New Caledonia's political status. On Thursday, he travels to Vanuatu for a brief visit, particularly to talk about development issues, climate change, and France's Indo-Pacific strategy. And then on Friday, a flying visit to Port Moresby, following in the footsteps of other regional leaders, to talk about biodiversity, the role of French corporations in PNG's resources sector, and similar topics.
So a lot happening there, but let's focus on New Caledonia. What can we expect specifically from his visit? Because I understand that the reception hasn't been welcoming from one side, with the Caledonian Union having a few strong opinions about his trip.
Local committees of the main independence party, Union Caledonienne, have called for what they call peaceful but determined rallies, particularly when he heads north on Tuesday afternoon to the east coast town of Tuo. Also when he gathers the New Caledonian community together on Wednesday afternoon for a speech in Place de Cocotier. New Caledonia is still politically divided over the future status, and Macron will be addressing quite complex issues about New Caledonia's electoral role for its local political institutions. He'll also be under pressure to acknowledge France's ongoing colonial role in the region. However, I think the French delegation, which includes not only President Macron, but his foreign minister, Catherine Colonna, his defence minister, his overseas minister, and other junior ministers, it's quite a team coming to Noumea. A big focus will be on asserting France's role as an Indo-Pacific force, indeed what he calls a balancing force between the major powers, the United States and China. Tomorrow morning, Tuesday, he'll be holding a major military review in Place Pierre Hakim, where there's a war memorial in Noumea. France has deployed Rafale jet fighters, and 2 of those will be doing an overfly. So President Macron sending signals that France is a military force in the region, despite its capacity really being limited to humanitarian and disaster response. It wants to be sending a signal that Paris is here to stay.
So any clue on what his announcement may be?
The French government have called for both supporters and opponents of independence, the political leadership of the independence movement, FLNKS, and so-called loyalist parties, to travel to Paris in late August for negotiations on a future political statute for New Caledonia, to wrap up the Noumea Accord, which has governed politics for the last 25 years. The FLNKS, the independence movement, has raised many concerns about French policy. There's an ongoing debate about who can vote for local political institutions in New Caledonia, and some commentators are expecting President Macron to make some remarks about that, whether he can clarify it. I think the French government is hoping that the independence movement will come to Paris for trilateral negotiations, so between the FLNKS, the loyalist parties and the French state. Over the last nearly 2 years, there's only been bilateral talks between the independence movement and the French government. France really needs to keep things moving. But President Macron is incredibly weak politically, domestically at home. There's been major protests over his pension reforms. There's been literally rioting in the streets after the police killing of a young French citizen. and he's lost a majority in the National Assembly. So Macron is trying to, show that he's still a major leader at a time where he faces enormous political difficulties at home.